Okay, here's a quick video because it's too much to type. Some things some of you may or may not know. 6 months ago or so, cardiology had an issue where providers weren't showing up to the clinic. It screwed up their clinic schedule. It was a whole mess. They didn't know they were off, blah, blah, blah. That led to either creating or implementing what already existed, a Providence-wide, SMG-wide scheduling system where you created your schedule on an online matrix. They wanted you to request days you wanted off. If you need to change with somebody, you did that request through the matrix. So like your manager knew where all of you were at every time, and they could make sure their outpatient clinics were covered, etc. Blah blah. This came from Bill Zhang, but it came from above him, from the whole system. So we said that sucks. It has nothing to do with us. Our schedule is so all over the place. It would never make any sense. We don't want to do it. And he actually acquiesced. I was quite surprised. I thought we were kind of screwed with this one. What he wanted in return, he's like, all I really need from you is quarterly, moving forward, for the upcoming quarter, let us know how many PTO days, flex days, CME days people are taking off. I said, okay. I mean, it's not a concrete number. If you're going in the future, people might change their mind. And Bill said, that's okay. We just want an idea. So I roped Gil and Laura into this just so we wouldn't miss our deadline and get stuck using this online system matrix thing. So we did that for the first quarter. Fine. Bill said, thank you. So we just did it. Laura just submitted for the second quarter. And Bill said, thanks. Now can you send me all the PTO, comp, flex days, CME for the entire year? And Clay, can you tally up all those dates, make sure they meet our PTA requirements, our limits, guide, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so we're like, what is going on? Like, what are they asking for this public information for? And what do they intend to do with it? So kind of made us a little nervous. We submitted it as requested anyway, because we didn't really have a choice. I talked to Pat Ryan about this today, and he just kind of like, that's odd. He's like, this is all, he said the whole system is nervous about losing money and blah, blah, blah. Eric Wexler, the new CEO, gave his speech about we got no money, everything's going to die, we got to fire everybody, administrators. Pat said Bill Zhang is just in the middle of this. He's, above us, below him, just doing his duty. So Pat's take was, this isn't really anything to worry about. They are across the system, not just looking at us, cardiac surgery. They're collecting this kind of data because Bill has to report those numbers up to somebody to show that they're, keeping an eye on things or whatever. And he said, I don't think they're going to collect it for a while and probably just stop doing it because they don't know what to do with it and it's too much work. For example, Pat said Bill has asked him and the surgeons to tell them now how many cases they're going to do from now until the end of 2025. And Pat's like, the fuck knows? How will we know? I mean, they have estimates based on the last, 5 or 10 years, but he said they want that information. So he's like, okay, so we're just submitting it. Pat's not too worried about it. And I said, we're kind of nervous about this being asked of us. This type of stuff's never been asked us before. If they're collecting data, that means they're probably going to use it, presumably against us. And I don't know if that means limiting our PTO or trimming our numbers, maybe saying we don't need 9 APCs, we need 8. And he said, don't worry about that. He said, first of all, your PTO is contracted, you're allowed to use it, so don't feel like you can't. Second of all, he said they're not downsizing anywhere at the bedside, especially cardiac surgery. He said cardiac surgery makes money. We're one of the only service lines that do. And he said they're trying to find out ways for us to make more money and do more cases. Pat said he's been through 3 RIFs before, reduction in force. RIFs, and he said they've never eliminated positions from the bedside. It's more middle management, that kind of stuff thing. And I said, we don't know what's going on. The CEO is new. Bill Zhang is new. He took over for Amy Duggan. Amy Duggan moved up. Bill's now in her role. I said, I don't know if he's got our best interest at heart. I don't know if he's a go-getter that's going to try to slash 10% off everyone's budget so he can look great to the CEO or pad his resume to go move on to some other hospital system like all our administrators seem to do every 3 to 4 years. And Pat said, well, what I can see Bill's actions, for one thing, there was a question or a push or in all of, saving money, to consolidate the vascular surgery and cardiac surgery office, because there's some duplication of services there. So that was one thing that was floated out, and Bill blocked that, which means vascular surgery had to hire their own office manager, their own Lindsay, Nina, had to do some hiring to have them their own independent office, which actually costs more money. And Bill pushed that forward as opposed to constricting the two into one and saving money. He said he is also pushing for more APC providers for vascular surgery, for cardiology, in the sense of procedural APCs that can kind of cover cath lab, EP, whatever, and kind of set up their oversight, kind of like ours is. We have some surgeons and APCs underneath it, and that's how it works. Over in the cardiology, it's not quite that way right now. Anyway, so he thought in general that Bill is not out to get us specifically and just trim some fat so he can look good to his upper-ups. Pat recommended, which we've already done, is just answer the questions he asks. Don't offer any more information than he's asking. So Laura put forth, like I said, just based on our Google Calendar, how many days PTO you've requested from now to the end of the year, how many CME, maybe flex days, I'm not sure. And, those things aren't set in stone. You can always change, just like we always have been. I think he needs a set of numbers to show somebody. And another thing Pat said is they are trying to rein in some bad actors that have kind of abused the system over the years. For example, this kind of started with Pete Demopoulos didn't show up to clinic one day, and that his outpatient clinic, and that sent everything in a tizzy. Well, he's probably done that before in the past, and and he said other clinics are like, hey, it's spring break, we're going to shut our clinic for the week and no one has to come in. They're like, administration's like, well, someone's got to come in. You can't just unilaterally decide you're not working and everyone's getting paid. So Pat said the first step to rein stuff in like that is to set a standard that everyone is expected to follow, and then you can identify the people that are outside of that standard and address that more succinctly. It's a lot of administrative speak, who knows what's true, what's bad, but he felt that we are, as Glenn Barnard used to tell us, that we are viewed as one of the more efficient models in how to run a mid-level service and a service as a whole, cardiac surgery. We make money. We are recognized for the work we do within the system and how well we do it. And he said, I don't think anyone is specifically looking at you and targeting you. This is something they're doing across the board. And he says, I don't really think much will come of it. He says, if anything, if they're asking more questions, being more nitpicky, or saying you can't use PTO or flexible, he said, that's when you don't say a word and come to me, and then we'll escalate it. So I think we're okay. Like I said, the surgeons are getting the same crap being asked specifically how many cases they're doing for the next 9 months, which who knows that number. So I think Gil and Laura knew the most about this, so that kind of answers the questions the three of us are having in a circle. Some of you probably had no idea any of this was going on, which is fine. But I never feel comfortable knowing something about the group that not everybody knows. So I don't think we have a major issue. It's something that we were concerned about. If I'm concerned, I don't want, not that I want to make you concerned, but everyone else, I want to at least be on the same page where everything's at. So that's where we're at. I think it's fine. We reported just the numbers asked for us to bill. We'll see what happens going forward. He asked for the rest of the year, so honestly, I'm expecting really nothing much to happen the rest of the year. And fingers crossed, they just leave us alone, because we love to be left alone. All right, peace.